The story of Johnny Paycheck has long been told through the lens of outlaw country mythology, but behind the stage persona was a complicated family reality that rarely reached the public. His son, now speaking after decades of silence, reflects on a childhood shaped by constant movement, emotional turbulence, and the unpredictable rhythm of fame. While audiences remember the anthems of rebellion and working-class defiance, the household itself was often unstable, marked by absence, conflict, and fleeting moments of tenderness. This is not a tale of celebrity admiration, but of personal reckoning, where memory and legacy collide. In revisiting these experiences, the son confronts both admiration and pain, trying to reconcile the man the world celebrated with the father he struggled to understand. Truth reshapes life on the road. As a child, Johnny Paycheck's touring life meant his son grew up in a world without stability, constantly shifting between buses, motels, and unfamiliar towns. Early memories are filled with dimly lit stages, smoky venues, and the hum of music that defined his father's career but rarely paused for family life. Nights often ended in motel rooms where exhaustion replaced routine, and sleep came only after long stretches of waiting. The son recalls learning to adapt quickly, never knowing when his father would disappear for days or return unexpectedly. Despite the chaos, there were brief moments of warmth that stood out more sharply against the instability. Those fragments of connection became memories he carried into adulthood, shaping both longing and distance. Road life defined his childhood: completely instability, addiction, and a volatile home. Behind closed doors, the household was marked by volatility, with alcohol, anger, and unpredictability shaping daily life. The son describes a father who could shift rapidly from humor to rage, leaving emotional confusion in his wake. Music and fame brought opportunity but also pressure, especially as success was intertwined with substance abuse. Arguments in the home were frequent, often escalating without resolution and leaving lingering tension. For a child, the unpredictability created a constant sense of uncertainty and emotional guarding. Trust became difficult, not only in others but in stability itself as a concept. Even moments of affection were shadowed by the knowledge that they might not last. The son learned early to read moods, anticipating shifts in behavior to avoid conflict. Survival became routine, a child's search for normalcy. Despite the chaos of his upbringing, the son longed for ordinary experiences that most children take for granted. He wished for consistency, for a father who would attend school events, birthdays, and simple family dinners. Instead, he often navigated disappointment, learning not to expect promises to be fulfilled. The emotional gap between father and son widened as years passed, even during brief reunions. Yet admiration lingered, rooted in the recognition of his father's musical influence and talent. This duality created internal conflict between love and resentment throughout his formative years. He tried to separate the artist from the parent, though the lines often blurred. Friends rarely understood the complexity of his situation, so he kept it private. Normal life always felt out of reach entirely. Two faces of Johnny Paycheck. To the public, Johnny Paycheck was an outlaw country icon, known for defiant lyrics and a rebellious stage presence. At home, however, his son saw a more fragmented figure, torn between charm and emotional instability. This contrast created confusion, as moments of warmth were often followed by withdrawal or anger. The public image of rebellion masked private struggles that were rarely acknowledged outside the family. His son struggled to reconcile admiration for the performer with pain caused by the parent. Over time, this tension shaped his understanding of identity and inheritance. He realized that fame does not simplify family relationships, but often complicates them further. Both versions of his father felt equally real, but fundamentally incompatible. He lived between both without resolution for years, quietly, fading fame and declining years. As Johnny Paycheck's career slowed in the late 1980s and early 1990s, personal struggles became more visible and difficult to ignore. Substance abuse and health issues increasingly affected both his professional reliability and personal relationships. Performances became less frequent, and the intensity that once defined him began to wane. Financial instability followed, adding pressure to an already strained household environment. The son witnessed a man increasingly disconnected from stability, routine, and long-term planning. Touring life gave way to isolation, which deepened emotional and physical decline. Friends and collaborators noticed changes but often felt powerless to intervene effectively. The mythology of the outlaw began to fade as reality became harder to conceal. What remained was a man struggling against time and his own body itself quietly, financial strain and broken stability. Financial troubles became increasingly severe during the later years of Johnny Paycheck's life. Bankruptcy filings and unpaid obligations created additional strain on an already fragile situation. The household often faced uncertainty regarding basic needs, reflecting the consequences of prolonged instability. Fame had not translated into long-term financial security, contrary to public assumptions. The son learned early that success in entertainment did not guarantee protection from hardship. Cars were repossessed, utilities disconnected, and daily life became increasingly unpredictable. Despite public recognition, the family often lived with scarcity and uncertainty. These conditions reinforced emotional strain and deepened existing tensions within the household. Looking back, the son recognizes that financial collapse mirrored emotional collapse, each reinforcing the other, as fame faded and reality took its place slowly completely. Isolation and hidden identity. As the public narrative around Johnny Paycheck grew, his son increasingly withdrew from conversations about his family history. He avoided discussing his father in social settings, preferring anonymity over explanation. This secrecy became a form of protection, allowing him to build an independent identity. Yet the weight of legacy remained present, even in moments of distance from it. Friends were often unaware of the connection, which helped maintain a sense of normalcy. Internally, however, the struggle between pride and resentment continued to shape his emotional world. He lived between two identities, one public myth and one private reality. Over time, silence became easier than explanation, even to those closest to him. The burden of inheritance was carried quietly, but never fully escaped in adulthood now. The breaking point in hospital. The most painful moment came when the son saw his father in a hospital room, physically diminished and vulnerable. Years of substance abuse and illness had reduced the once larger-than-life figure to a fragile state. The man who once commanded stages now struggled with basic physical movement and daily care. The son describes feeling both grief and anger, emotions that collided in silence. Confrontations about the past were difficult, as his father often avoided deeper reflection. Despite the pain, there were moments of honesty that emerged late at night. These conversations revealed regret, fear, and an awareness of time running out. The father acknowledged mistakes that had shaped both his life and his family's suffering. In that room, forgiveness began to take root slowly. Now final conversations and last days. In the final months of his life, Johnny Paycheck experienced a gradual decline in health and independence. Hospice care marked the end of touring life and the beginning of quiet reflection. The son recalls nights spent at his father's bedside, listening to confessions and memories. These moments revealed vulnerability that had rarely been visible during earlier years. Conversations included apologies, explanations, and reflections on a life shaped by fame and addiction. The father expressed regret not with grandeur but with quiet acknowledgement of harm caused. The son, though emotionally strained, found himself listening more than speaking during these exchanges. What remained was presence, not repair or redemption in the end. Letters, cassette tapes, and hidden truths. After his father's passing,